How do I see myself there?
Well, welcome to another Cutting Edge Show. I'm Omar Neal. I'll be one of your hosts today. I'm the former mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama, as well as the host of the You Got the Power show. But tonight I'm hosting the Cutting Edge Show, a wonderful show that focuses on all things health and wellness. Well, today we're going to have a wonderful celebration today. As you know, we're celebrating and saluting Black Women's History Month. We had Black History Month last month, and we had just a plethora of subjects that focused on the contributions of African American people in this country and around the world. Well, this month we're shifting gears a little bit, and we're going to be talking about women, particularly in different contexts. We want to make sure that you can follow us and be a part of what we're doing, so you can tune in through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Make sure that you like and share so that others can engage in this wonderful dialogue. Well, for me, it's a pleasure always to hang out with a brother from another mother. Uh, my dear friend and co-host, Dr. Stephen, Dr. T. Thomas. Hey, man, how are you doing?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, it's wonderful to be here today. And, here we are in a new month. And, I thought of my mother this morning when I saw the blue sky. I wanted to run outside without a coat. They say March comes in like a lion, right? Goes out like a lamb. Well, I'm coming in with another ancestor, Frederick Douglass.
I see.
And you know what he said? Agitate, agitate, agitate. I think that's where we are in the pandemic right now, as everyone wants to throw away the mitigation. Now's the time to agitate, to make sure that the things that we put in place that work to reach our communities stay in place. What a show we have tonight to bring the arts into the mix.
Yeah, Frederick Douglass also said, power succeeds nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. And he was right then, and he's right today.
Who would imagine that the power would come from the barber and salon chair? That's what this has taught me. Straight talk from the barbershops and the beauty salons.
Absolutely. Well, again, man, I'm excited about this show. But before we do anything, it's the people who are behind the scenes that you really don't see. But let me tell you, if it were not for them, we would not have a Cutting Edge show. So, Meg Jordan, Maggie Daly, Shania Kane, Kimberly Fleming, as well as Elijah Pugh Jr. And Sharia is our social media communication person. So she's the person who makes sure that we get on all of these social media places. And that music that you heard, that's Elijah Pugh Jr. He put that together. And of course, our social media, Kimberly is doing that. And our tech people, I mean, these are the people who make sure that people get information out, make sure that everything's set up, make sure that people are coming up and in and out of the Hollywood squares. Meg Jordan is our tech director and assisted by none other than Maggie Daly. I mean, we got the top people in the whole United States world kingdom doing this thing for us.
And Omar, let me just say this before we leave this slide. These are young people. These are folks that next generation. And as Soraya has reminded me, just think of Sunrise. That's how you get that pronunciation. Soraya Khan. And the diversity of the back office crew and all the others that we're training to do this work.
Yeah. So we wanted to take out some time, not to just put up the screen, but actually to tell you and to thank the people who are behind the scenes to make this thing happen.
All right.
Well, we got a wonderful show coming up today, man. We're going to be talking about addressing COVID-19 pandemic through a filmmaker's lens. And, having, understood based firsthand how important the arts are to addressing and framing the issue. We talk about it oftentimes, Dr. T. How you frame the issue determines who embrace the cause. Well, these individuals have used their skills and talents to capture the attention, the curiosity, the interest of the public, to give them a message so that they can naturally gravitate to take care of themselves. We have Deborah Rowley Draper, who is an extraordinary filmmaker with us. Shay Rhodes, all the way from the UK, is hanging out with us today. We've done some work with him. I've done some work with Deborah Rowley Draper. We have, our very own Jasmine Mitchell, who is a filmmaker in her own right. She's a playwright and all of that, and we're going to talk about that. And Marcus Ford, who also filmmakers. So everybody here are filmmakers and artists and people who actually create something that gets your attention. And that's why I'm so excited to have this conversation, not just getting our attention, but getting knowledge out so that people can have an informed conversation rather than mis and disinformation. And I think that's incredibly important. So,
Mayor,
go ahead.
Mayor, people learn in different ways. And so the arts will give us another level of learning, and it brings the emotional content in to get through to the finish line here. We're going to have some vigilance to keep our community safe.
Yeah. And that's true. We're going to have to do that. And I am concerned, Doc. Can I be perfectly honest with you? I am concerned that, again, we are spiking the ball on the 20-yard line, right? And if you spike the ball on the 20-yard line, that's not a touchdown. That's a fumble.
There you
right?
go.
Right. And
even on the 5-yard line, it's a fumble.
Right. Well, on the 1-yard line, it's a half a yard line, it's a fumble. Right. But the point of the matter is, I want people to know that COVID has not gone.
Nope.
Now, we do know that they are relaxing the mitigation measures, and that may be the case. But we want you to protect yourself, regardless of what someone else says. Right. We want you to protect yourself, and particularly if you're not vaccinated.
There you go.
Not just vaccinated once or twice, but also with the booster.
There you go. You
right?
need the booster.
You're right. You need the booster. And that's something we need to have a show on boosting the booster.
There you go.
Right. So we can get more people to understand that you are not fully protected. And even with that, you need to make sure that you continue to do mitigation measures until we can get to another space. I don't know if we're there yet. I'm not trying to contradict CDC or any of the other agencies that set those guidelines. But I do want to say that we have to take ownership of our own lives and protect ourselves. And just because somebody say, do this, what is comfortable with you? And you make it clear, Dr. T, when you say you need to ask yourself, who am I sharing air with?
Yes.
Because this is what it's about. And once you said that, I just thought about it. Do I know who I'm sharing air with? And if I don't, then I need to protect myself for sure.
There's ways you can do that.
And that's critically important. Well, we got a hot show today. So I don't want to for which they say with no further ado.
There we go.
Let's bring up Shay Rhodes.
It's our first international guest.
Man, Shay Rhodes, man, we did a film with him. I was a part of a film that he did. He came over from the UK, and just being in his presence, you knew the depth of his thinking. I mean, just the research that he did about Tuskegee particular,
yes,
and the other areas. He just really knew very intricately the details that took place with the public health service study conducted in Tuskegee. And he was telling me things, and so I could have a really good conversation with this brother because he was really informed. He takes his work extremely seriously. He's a reporter and presenter for the Quicksilver Media. And of course, let's bring on my dear friend, none other than Shay Rose. Man, hey man, how are you doing?
Yeah,
Welcome.
good. It's
Good,
good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
good. So what's happening over in the UK? Can kind of
Well,
give us
we've been consumed with the news coming out of Ukraine. Obviously, there's a war
right.
in Europe for the first time in our lifetime, and so that's been taking us over. I've got another documentary coming out, which has actually been delayed by the Ukraine, the news and everything that's been going on the last couple of weeks, and that's from South Sudan. And again, it's about COVID and looking at the vaccine rollout down there, kind of using South Sudan as a model for Africa generally, because
Mhm.
they've had a really very different experience to Europe and America. They have no vaccines. We're talking about 3% perhaps of the population vaccinated. The vaccines that they were promised were supposed to arrive, donated by our countries, Western countries, have
Mhm.
not arrived. When they do turn up, they tend to be almost out of date. So they
Mhm.
have to be got out to people pretty quickly, which is tough in South
Right.
Sudan.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good documentary that's coming out I think in a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
But UK's been good. Apart from that, it's cold. And it's late. You guys have me up late, man. This is
I
past
know
midnight.
that, I'm going to apologize later on, but to have you, man,
Right.
there is no apology to have my dear friend. I told you when we met, I said we're going to be friends forever. So you already know that, right? Right. Let me
Here I
say
am.
this, man. Kudos to you. I saw the finished product. I have not talked to you since I saw the product. Man, you did an absolutely wonderful, splendid job on that documentary. I just want you to know that you
I'm
were
glad.
excellent.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you enjoyed it. I mean, it was wonderful to meet you both. Obviously, you both featured prominently in the documentary, and hey, listen, it needed to be talked about, and I'm just really glad to have had the opportunity to
Yeah.
do so. In my game, there's a million different things you could talk about, but ultimately, when you get the chance, it's about just seizing it and making sure people are listening.
Yeah.
Shay,
Go ahead, Dr. T.
what I really appreciated was you took us through the pain and suffering. We got to go there and document it. And you did a wonderful job in doing that, including in the UK. But you also had some silver linings. And it just seemed like the way it was edited, you didn't know how it would end starting out. And it was as if we followed your journey. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's I think the way to make documentaries is to always be open. You've got to see change in the film in some way, as in change in the characters. And I was obviously a character in that film, the main one really, because I was the conduit through which you followed my journey. So seeing change is crucial, and I tend to enter these things. I say I'm a Libra, so I'm always pretty balanced. I can see both sides. So I do tend to enter these things in a state of balance, and I let each interview kind of take me one way or the other. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going to end up, and that's crucial. It's really important.
Yeah, give us your background. How did you get to that space? Because obviously has to do with something, your upbringing, the environment that you grew up, something that led you to really being open-minded. They say the mind and a parachute are similar because they work best when they're open. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I really want my audience to know about.
Well, I was born here in the UK. Brought up here until I was sort of kind of maybe 6-7 years old, and then I went and lived with family in Nigeria, and I lived there for 3 or 4 years before I came back. So I kind of experienced being a Black British kid in the 80s. I was kind of just becoming cognizant really of what that meant when I left, and then I suddenly found myself, instead of being the only Black person in my school, suddenly I was, I didn't see any white people anywhere in Nigeria, and everything was completely different. um, the third world is a challenging place to be, challenging place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a young kid on my own, that was really tough to deal with. But yeah, stayed with family out there, and that kind of opened my eyes to being different, but the same, but different, and kind of really, taught me a lot. Came back and I actually went to a private boarding school when I came back. My mum scholarship, so I ended up going to a quite good school, university here, and then I've kind of worked in TV ever since. BBC, Channel 4,
Okay. All right. So now we know Shay Rhodes. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We want you to meet some other people who are filmmakers as well. Let's bring Jasmine Mitchell up and introduce her. I gave her a nickname today, and it's Sunshine, because she has such an infectious smile. I mean, it's just it just radiates and permeates the whole room with her presence and her smiles. Thank you so much, Jasmine Mitchell. She's a playwright, director, and performer, and she works on our team as well, so we can claim her. I mean, and hey,
she's a terp. She's a terp too.
Oh, absolutely. Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good. We one is appreciative of what you do and who you are. We got a chance to see some of your work recently, and found out that you are an artist as well, right?
I am. Yes.
In fact, one of your instructors did not even know that part of you, right?
No, she didn't.
She said that. She said, "I didn't know you were capable. You did all that." And say, you just keep watching. You stay tuned. That's what I'm going to say about Jasmine Mitchell. Just stay tuned. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a DC-based artist, and like you said, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. So a woman of many hats. I'm a writer, director, visual artist, and performer, namely. I'm a proud immigrant, second-generation immigrant from the island of Dominica, and I'm driven toward telling stories that highlight the Black community, Black women, and also tend to be faith-based in nature or highlight some type of inspiring theme.
How did you come to understand and appreciate this is not what you did, but who you are?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. I would say, well, I first encountered the arts in church. I grew up in the church, and that's where I was able to express myself. And so I thought maybe engineering would be the route that I took, and I found that wasn't for me. But I was really just driven toward telling stories that inspired people. And so even if I find myself not creating something or collaborating with another person, not being the driving force of that, it is really about who I am. I can incorporate creativity in anything that I do. So it's a core part of my identity.
I'm so, for me, I'm intrigued by the people who do what you all do. I really am. I've gotten a chance to see it up close most recently, but it is very, very, very exciting to be in the presence of creative people, and it's something that we're going to really delve into. Thank you, Ms. Jasmine Mitchell, for joining with us on The Cutting Edge.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So Jasmine,
right.
I know we're gonna, before we keep moving, I would just want to say that I can't wait to hear you describe what it meant when, you get a lot of different jobs, but you've taken this on like a mission.
Oh,
and
yeah.
As this show rolls out, I want to know where that's coming from.
I got you. You want me to tell you right now?
Absolutely. No time, what they say, no time like the present, right?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just have a heart for the Black community, and similar to what was said earlier, I've struggled with my own identity, being a child of immigrants and growing up in Charles County, Maryland, Southern Maryland, um, trying to figure out how to talk about race and who I was and what it meant for me. And so I feel really personally invested in this project, being able to pour into my community and affect it in a positive way. And I feel connected to the characters that we've brought to life. So I really believe this project is going to make a difference and it's going to inspire folks. So,
all right.
Absolutely.
And the audience out there is going to be learning more about this project as we bring the other part of the team up. Who's coming up next, Omar? Mr. Mayor?
We're bringing up a Marcus Ford, and who is another, creative extraordinaire,
Look
poet,
at him.
filmmaker, and designer. Marcus Ford, man, how are you doing? You know, I named him Cool because that's what he is. I mean, he's just a cool brother, and sharp as a razor, as they say. He's the cutting edge.
There you go.
You know, and
Get a poster of him.
Absolutely, man. I'm telling you, just a really good, a great person, and all of which, and you'll notice this, that there's a theme, the continents of each of these individuals, just a they're special people, and they're the ones that are really telling the story. Marcus Ford, hey man, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Mayor Omar. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know what I want to do is people often ask, what you do, but they don't ask who you are, right? So I want you to kind of, and we'll talk about your work, because I was really impressed with the fact that you kind of found out early what you wanted to do in your life, obviously, right? So I want to find out who is Marcus Ford, and then we're going to find out, how did you get into this space, and as vested as you are in doing this work?
Who is Marcus Ford? I think that I'm a person who, that feels like a therapy question to me. but overall, we just be chilling. We have fun. I like to chase my curiosity, whatever it comes in. I tend to be attracted to projects that require a bit of introspection, like who I am, where I'm going. So like that involves film, music. I'm just like trying to generate like the most like honest version of not only myself, but I feel like we're all connected. I mean, you could probably hear me being an artist right now and explaining the work, but who am I? I mean, I just think I'm a person who likes to connect with other people, and the work that I do tends to be collaborative, and it's a lot of fun, like exploring problems together with other people. So that's what draws me to this project, and throughout life, it's just about like genuine connections, learning from other people. I just have my own experiences, so it's really like cool to open up my mind to wherever we are in life. I'm from PG County. If someone's from like Nebraska, I'm sure they've experienced a little different to me. So we can, find an understanding, and I grow from that. That's my answer.
So where did you grow up? I mean, what part of the country did you grow up in? And that would give us some indication of something about you.
I forgot to mention where I'm from. I'm from Prince George's County, which is 10 minutes away from University of Maryland. So we have a largely Black and Latino population. Grew up with a whole bunch of different people, different perspectives, mainly working class where I'm from, Hyattsville, Maryland. I feel like that definitely shaped my worldview. Met a lot of brilliant people from all different kind of tongues, and it's really shaped me into who I am today. And similar to Shay, I was a journalism major when I first began UMB. So I had a bit of journalism experience, and because we didn't really have a dedicated film program at UMB, but I wanted to play around with cameras. And I also wanted to work for the New Yorker or whatever. I don't know what 17-year-old Marcus wanted to do. But I was like, yeah, sure, storytelling, camera stuff, journalism, boom. And I feel like ever since then, it's just been like curating and shaping stories, and cutting off words in poetry, and just like trying to express myself in the best way possible with whatever medium and tools I have at my disposal. I forgot what question you asked me, Mayor Omar.
No, you answered my question.
Hey, Mayor.
Go ahead.
just look at these Hollywood squares. These two young scholars, Jasmine and Marcus, interacted with Shay over in London. Now, come on now.
Right.
That's a silver lining in this whole pandemic. But
Yeah.
Shay doesn't know the project you two are working on. Somebody got to tell him what you're doing.
Yeah, you got to tell me a bit more about it.
Somebody
Yeah.
got to tell 'em. All right. So we were brought to work with the Maryland Center for Health Equity, right, Dr. T? Equity,
got it.
equality, health equity. And so pretty much Prince George's County, my beloved county, you know, place of residence, place where I was born, my birthplace, I guess. I don't know. We had a health disparity in terms of the rollout and communication with COVID. So what, man, this is a pretty big explanation I'm going to give in front of like very, you know,
You could do a thumbnail. You can set the stage. You can do a thumbnail.
Don't stop now. Yeah, so pretty much like there was a big gap in terms of communication, and just the rollout was really messy. So we're just like trying to fill in the gap and make it, we're like trying to connect the community to health practices and like improve trust, and yeah, just like fits the. Jasmine, help me out, bro.
I got you.
That's why you have partners. You know,
that's why we're collaborating. We got the synergy.
That's what you need it for.
So COVID coming, it exacerbated the existing issues with the health disparity for the Black community. So Marcus and I were brought on to make this information come to life by creating relatable characters in a zine project. So that's what we did. We gave our first pitch. Dr. T, Mayor Neil,
absolutely.
You can back us up here, but
absolutely.
I think y'all loved it.
Off the chain. Really off the chain. Absolutely
Thank
incredible. You know, and so, again, each of you in your own special way have saved lives. And literally saved lives. And so I'm going to bring somebody on that I know have saved lives. And certainly she's come into my life and will be permanently etched in my life because she's permanently etched in my heart. She did the ad council piece that I was one of the featured people in. I'm a descendant of the United States Public Health Service study that was conducted in Tuskegee. And my uncle was a victim of that study. He wasn't a participant because he didn't know what was what, but he was a subject of that study. And she came in, and I saw magic take place before my very eyes. I saw a person with passion, with respect. She presented the ultimate in respect, in appreciation for our struggle. And she made sure that it was not some storyline that she had created. It was how we felt, and that she was able to synthesize the story in a way that it made sense to other people. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me and welcome me a dear friend of mine who is an author. She's a filmmaker. She is a extraordinary human being, Mrs. Deborah Rowley Draper.
All right, let's put some snaps together for. Welcome. Unmute yourself.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I am honored to be here, and wow, Mayor Neil, what an amazing welcome and a great intro. There is no better honor than to have the opportunity to tell someone's story and their history, and to hear from the person who is a part of that history, and they give you the nod, and they tell you, you did right by me and my family and my legacy and my history. So all of you giving me the nod makes the work great. And I have something to tell you, Mayor Neil, that you don't know. I just heard from the American Advertising Federation and the Legacy Story Spot won the Gold Addy Award in the Atlanta Ad Club.
All right, now come
Wow.
on, give it up.
That's incredible.
Give it up.
That's incredible. You
Yes.
know, let me tell you this, you can talk about us, but your work was incredible. I saw, Dr. T, you got to see it up close to believe how meticulous she is and how she was able to have her team work that situation in a way. And then to see the final product and recognize how she was able to take that story and bring it to life. That's a gift. And I don't know whether or not that's something you can learn in school. It's a special gift. And she has it in spades. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a tremendous story. So I want people to know who Deborah Riley Draper is.
Absolutely. I'll start in the place that's most special. My company is called Coffee Bluff Pictures. My family spent their time thriving in an area called Coffee Bluff, which is outside of Savannah. So my ancestors were enslaved in the Sea Islands. And when they were emancipated, they came up literally the Coffee Bluff River, and that took them to Savannah, Georgia, outside of Savannah. So they made that place home. And that place has been their home since the 1800s. And my family, most of them still reside there. So it's pretty incredible to be able to always go home. So I named my company after all of those wonderful people that pour into me and have poured into my mother and my grandmother through the ages. So Coffee Bluff Pictures is the company name, but it's also the spirit in which I create. It's where the power of the storytelling comes from. And it's also where the authenticity and integrity comes from as well. So, but my career to filmmaking started in advertising. So I spent over a decade and a half as a Madison Avenue account person. I worked for BBDO, Ogilvy, and Publicis, working on Coca-Cola, Lamborghini, AT&T, FedEx, you name the blue chip account. I am so fortunate that I had the opportunity to work on that. But I wanted to do something more relevant. And long story short, I was driving to work, driving to my office, and you guys may recall this moment. Psychology Today had the article that said Black women were the ugliest women in the world. I don't know if you guys remember this. You guys remember this?
No, I don't. Have you heard, Jasmine, have you heard of that before?
No.
Sandra
I've never
remembers
heard
this.
that. I've never heard of that before. Wow.
Sandra remembers
Go
this
ahead.
article.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they said Black women are the ugliest women in the world. Researchers have done their study. They had all this empirical data about symmetry and all of this. And I almost wrecked my car listening to this report. And I was just fuming. And I was like, you know what? We have to be able to be in a position to tell stories, not just to counter that, but to tell stories that embody who we really are and find the beauty in our circumstances, the good, the bad, but how we are such an important part of the fabric of this country. And so I'm just seething the whole day, just like, don't talk to me. A couple of days later, I'm in my car again, and Barbara Jackson, this African-American model, spoke about the day in 1973 where the beautiful Black women tore the roof off the Chateau de Versailles. And I'm like, wait, what is this? I have no idea what she's talking about. And I did some research and I discovered that 12 Black models on November 28, 1973, literally changed the history of fashion in Paris. And I was like, somebody ought to do a movie about that. And my husband was like, somebody, why don't you do it? And I was like, well, I've never made a movie before. And ladies and gentlemen, that became my first film, Versailles 73, American Runaway Revolution. One of those women was Beth Ann Hardison, Kadeem Hardison's mother, Pat Cleveland, Charlene Dash, who's Julie Dash's sister. So all these amazing Black women that we know in that moment in 1973 blazed a trail for the Naomi Campbells and all the models we know to follow. That became my first film. That became my entree into filmmaking. And since that moment, I have centered my stories around these moments where we defy the odds and we change the course of history. The next documentary and book was called Olympic Pride. You have this book, Mayor.
Right here. This
Olympic-
is incredible. I'm telling you, an incredible book. Tell them about that. And then I want you to just tell them some of the film that you've made, because everything you've done is it's like that needs to be done.
It has to be told.
Deborah Riley Drakem did it. That needs to be done. She's done that. It's like you find those really nuggets.
It's divine intervention, especially with Olympic Pride, American Prejudice. That was not the story I started out to tell, Mayor. I was going to tell a story about Valeda Snow, who was a Black woman that was interned in a Nazi concentration camp, because I didn't know that there were Black people. And somehow when that story is being told, we forget that not a lot, but there were some who were there. And so Valeda Snow was one of those women. And I didn't tell that story because I got sidetracked by a quote she made about the 18 African Americans on the Olympic team in 1936. And again, unfortunately, I didn't know there were 18 African Americans on the 1936 Olympic team. I thought there was only Jesse Owens. I didn't know Tyree Pickett and Louise Stokes, these young Black teenage women, were on the 1936 Olympic team, along with Mac Robinson, Jackie Robinson's older brother, Williams, who would become a Tuskegee Airman, and Ralph Metcalf, who would eventually become Congressman Metcalf and write the resolution for Black History Month and start the Congressional Black Caucus. But in 1936, they were kids and they were headed to Nazi Germany, and they were going to fight to prove that they were not second-class citizens and that they were better than what, Aryan supremacists said they were. So that was the story that I was like, whoa, these kids get on a boat for 10, long days to go to Nazi Germany to compete under swastikas and under the gaze of Adolf Hitler. And they won medals. But our media comes back, and the one name that's elevated and amplified, and rightfully so, is Jesse Owens. But these other 17 people disappear in history. So that's what the documentary.
Well, you brought them right back.
I brought them back.
I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Mary Neal,
I
just, as I'm hearing her speak, of being the agency that you show, I had this, my husband said it needs to be done. Why don't you do it? And you did it. We have some young artists here in Jasmine and Marcus, and an experienced documentarian in Shay. At some point, say something to these young scholars coming up about holding on to your dreams.
Well, I will tell you. I will tell you, it's not even, for me, it's not even about holding on to it. It's just moving through it, right? So move through it, figure out the stories that you want to tell. For me, the stories came to me. I wish I could say, oh my gosh, I was going to start out to tell the story. That wasn't it. The story came and was like, you need to tell me. And I told it, but you guys are amazing already. You're making content. Keep making it. Keep finding the stories that you want to tell. And you'll be surprised where these stories are. Like the mayor told me a story that's still on my docket that I'm going to get to. That's extraordinary. If you ask anybody in this Hollywood square, as it's been called, they have a tremendous story that's never been told. A story of Black heroes or brown heroes or any heroes that have been wiped from the books, disappeared from history. And you can excavate those stories and tell them because they're powerful. And you guys have all the tools you need. And the beauty of where you are right now is that things are democratized from a technological standpoint. You can access apps and phones and shoot an entire documentary or entire narrative. And all it takes is the perseverance. The day I left my job as a vice president at ad agency, I was like, is this a good idea? I'm not so sure. This could go really wrong. But I stayed true to wanting to tell stories that centered us and wanting to tell stories that people overlooked. And you have a drive and a passion, you know, like Jasmine, what is it, if you could tell any story, what would you tell?
Wow. I want to tell the story of my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're speaking about heroes, like I look to my mom, I look to my siblings, and I see heroes in them and the struggles that they've gone through, and telling the stories of immigrants as a whole. And just focusing on the Black community. That's really what's on my heart to tell.
You have to tell it, Jasmine. You have to tell that story. And that's a rather important story, because I actually did a film called Illegal Roads, and it was about immigration with Black and brown people, because sometimes in the news stories, a lot of times we don't recognize the situations of immigrants from the Caribbean, or immigrants from Africa, or immigrants from South America. So those stories are often marginalized. So being able to excavate your own family story and your own journey and tell it is amazing. You should check out this film called House on Cocoa Road. And you might like it. It's a similar storyline.
I'm gonna watch it and I'm gonna report back to you.
Hey, Shay, how about from where you are as a documentarian, lessons and for these young
I mean, for me,
you?
I think a general interest in the world is crucial. You've got to stretch your boundaries. You've got to find out about new things. You've got to explore and learn new skills is a really simple thing that you can do, because learning a new skill kind of gets you into a whole new world, a whole new set of people, a whole new set of experiences. And kind of just roll with it. One thing as you guys were talking that kind of came to me is that you should also be prepared to achieve the things that you set out to achieve. It sounds silly, but one of the weirdest things that's happened to me a few times so far in my career is that I've set a goal, and then 5-6 years later, I found myself there. And that's actually quite, because suddenly you don't know what to do next. You're like, oh, okay. Be prepared to achieve the things that you set out to achieve, and kind of be prepared to adapt and move on and roll on and make a new objective. People say that you should always set your targets high. I'm not sure if that's true. Set yourself targets, things you want to achieve. But when you get there, that doesn't mean you need to then go bigger and bigger. You can move in a different direction. You've got to be open to where the journey takes you.
Yeah. Your reach should always be beyond your grasp. Wherever you are, you should always be trying to reach. Even if it's going in another direction, you always should be reaching, because complacency is not where you need to be.
Absolutely. We've got to keep on moving forward. You've got to keep on moving forward. I think it's really important to set yourself realistic targets, and like I say, be prepared to get there.
I wanted. We're gonna do a check on. We do what we call a word cloud. We're gonna do that in a minute, but I'm interested in knowing from you, how did this COVID-19 thing come into your space? And we know, Jasmine, you and Marcus, we kind of know because we kind of pulled you all in from our angle. But you all came to us, Deborah Riley Draper. You came to me, and Shay Rhodes. You came to me. But I want to know, how did you get captured by the COVID-19 story, and why did you say yes? Start with you, Shay, and then you, Deborah, and then I want to hear from you, Marcus and Jasmine, about how do you see dealing with the issue like a pandemic in different from telling stories, other kind of stories.
So, I mean, one thing I think is really interesting, coming back to the point I was making earlier, I was working with foreign affairs documentaries have reached a pretty good level in my career, where I was making regular documentaries from different countries in a pretty privileged position, and in constant employment, constantly coming up with ideas and things. But I decided I wanted to make more history. what I do tended to be current affairs. So I would arrive in a country and I'd tell the story of what's happening in this country right now. As part of that, you obviously find out a huge amount of what happened before, but you have to kind of streamline it a little bit. You can't really tell a story about current affairs if you're constantly talking about the 1800s, for instance. So you don't get to go into history too much in what I normally do. And I started to talk more to channels and lawyers and producers about different historical ideas around slavery. Black slave owners, one that I pitched and wanted to make, wanted to look at the history of slavery in the African context. You know, one thing that's really interesting is that a lot of people in this country, at least, talk about slavery as this kind of taking process where white Europeans went to Africa and took slaves. And actually, if you go to certain parts of Nigeria, there's still a lot of pride in the fact that actually they sold the slaves. This was their land. Nobody invaded their land. Nobody came onto their land. Actually, they were far too strong for anybody to take anything from them. This was a trade. It was quite literally a slave trade. And I think telling those stories is really important. There was a sense of a complete lack of empowerment for me growing up, feeling as if my people were simply taken. Some people made some harsh decisions, and I think it's really important to try and understand why and how those things happen so that we can understand when they're happening again to us now. So yeah, I started talking to people more about history and more about different kind of historical stories that we could tell that have parallels to today. And that put me into a space where when COVID came along, suddenly the people I was talking to were asking more and more about the history of Black hesitance towards medicine, towards drugs, and now with this new COVID vaccine that was just coming out. And I found myself perfectly placed to be the person telling that story.
You know,
so you see, you know, you kind of just follow the journey, and you go to some interesting places.
So you know, so what's happening is it normally finds you, and you and you kind of acquiesce to the spirit says this is your purpose to do this. It's like you've been called out to be called on for such time as this. And I think, you know, when it comes to Deborah Riley Draper, that's what she's been called out. I know that people may not know her now. There's some people who don't know you, but I promise you, everybody will ultimately know you because I know how you are. I absolutely know that. So what got you into this COVID thing? I mean, you were doing other stuff. We didn't talk about the thing you did with the Black Wall Street, right?
Well,
and
yeah, I was finishing that. I was finishing Black Wall Street up. The Legacy of Black Wall Street was a 2-part docuseries on OWN and Discovery Plus. And we were in post when I got the call from the Ad Council about COVID. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to get this on the air in like 3 weeks. And but we were able to, in that process, pitch the concept of the Tuskegee stories. And, you know, my entire life, what I knew about Tuskegee was incorrect, right? So everything about the study, everything about the men was more urban legend than fact. Mm-hmm. And if that was my experience, then that led me to think, wow, there's so many more people like me that are confused. Although I wasn't confused enough to be hesitant, I had family members who were, and friends who were, and coworkers who were. So that's what compelled me to want to take a part in the Ad Council COVID-19 Education Initiative, and not to tell people to take a vaccine. That was my creative approach. It was to bring contextual relevance to an excuse that people were using, because people were blaming or attributing their hesitancy to 600 men who were involved in a study that they did not actively participate or choose to participate in. And they didn't receive a vaccine. They were actually denied medicine. But the facts were so convoluted that people got it twisted. And I wanted to allow the descendants, not me, because I'm not one, but to create a platform to tell a great story, but have that story come through the mouth and the spirit of descendants who knew what happened, who lived through what happened, and continue to carry both the triumph of that, but the pain of that as well in a legitimate way. So that's what drew me to the story. That's why I wrote the treatment for it. That's why I presented it to the Ad Council. So that you descendants can confront the mythology that was being put upon you directly. That's why.
Wow.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, as a public health professional, just salute you, just to say thank you, just to clap and applaud, because it was really the game changer in straightening out the excuse. And to hear from the voices of Mayor Neal and the others that spoke, don't use the suffering of our loved ones as your excuse. And you should know that Mayor Neal also, when he got his vaccination, he videotaped it and made it public. That was so important. And yet that same story, Shay showed how it was used by the anti-vax components to once again concretize this misinformation in our community. And you did a marvelous job in the documentary showing that juxtaposition, Shay. But Omar, in that juxtaposition, we're like David and the anti-vaxxers are like Goliath.
Right.
We're going to need all the artistic creativity in this room and beyond.
Yeah, in fact,
safe.
Disinformation has killed a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And that's the tragedy. And so we were really trying to just tell the truth. That's all. Believing that when people get the proper information, they naturally gravitate to take care of themselves. Let's just tell the truth. And we're going to talk about youth, because we got Marcus and Jasmine, because that was where the greatest hesitancy was. And there was a lot of, misinformation and a lot of information that was not correct in terms of young people not being as vulnerable to the virus as other people in terms of susceptible to death and serious illnesses. And then we found a lot of people dying because they had caught that. They kind of acquiesced to that, thinking that they were kind of immune or some kind of way not susceptible, right?
This is how we make a difference. Let's get that pulse beat, Mayor Neal.
Okay, let's do it. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to what we call the word cloud. And what we do each and every week, we ask you to put in the chat the word that best describe how you feel right now. Words are words.
That's right.
Multiple. You can put in more than one, just one at a time.
That's right.
And then whatever word that describes how you feel right now, just put it in the word cloud. Put as many in as you can. We'll give you about a minute to do that. Just put whatever word that describes exactly how you are. You don't have to overthink it. Just whatever it is that you're feeling right now, just put it in there. Just put it in there. And we're going to kind of put it up. And the word that comes up the most will be the word that comes up the largest. So we'll kind of get whatever our collective pulse is. That's what we're doing. Let me say this. I'm convinced, Dr. T, is that we got to really engage young people, and we got to do it in ways that is palatable, right, to them, and not condescending, right. And that's why, Marcus, you and Jasmine, you all got to help us, right? We literally need, not as a colleague, right, right. We need your help to reach the young people, because I think that invincibility thing that's kind of attached to being young anyway was exacerbated with COVID-19. And there are a lot of people who didn't make it because of that feeling that they were protected when they were not. So I want y'all to help us talk about, how do you believe or what messaging or what method of reaching young people is best is best served to change behavior?
Who wants to go first?
Marcus, now this is not therapy. This is this part is not therapy. I just want to know what you're thinking. Marcus, I said, Marcus, tell me who you are really. Marcus said, sound like therapy.
Hey,
well,
Marcus,
you know what? I never thought about it, but I guess it is kind of therapeutic that we do this.
Well, people have said that. People have said that, but that's the kind of sacred space that we create here. Hey, Marcus, I was out in a middle school with young people, helping them understand how to protect themselves from COVID with air filters that my undergrads built. And those sixth, seventh, and eighth graders decorated those, what we call Corsi Rosenthal boxes. The excitement in that room was off the charts. They got excited about science, and what was a functional box of a filter became art, priceless. What would you, when you describe what Mayor Neal is asking, talk to those kids.
Yeah.
Just talk to those kids.
Yeah, about it. I think that young people don't like to be, or like don't like to feel like they're being told what to do. I feel like a lot of conclusions are like made through play. So like you exploring whatever the journey is, like you can like come up with your own decision at the end of it. So I feel like it has to be made like, so in the vein of like not talking down to like not telling what to do, kind of just like presenting with information and then like letting them feel like they made the decision. However that happens. So, you know, like the middle schoolers who play with the boxes, they're like, oh, like, you know, like if you like enter the room, you know, it's like the coolest thing you ever made, they'll be like, yeah, all right. But you know, if it's like, if like they're like genuinely interested, like through play, they're like, oh yeah, you know what, like this is cool. But like when you like tell someone how they should feel about like before they actually feel it themselves, then just like close the conversation right then.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
That's the way that was in my school. I mean, even I was a pretty rebellious, you know, like not rebellious, but you know.
Yeah, it was rebellious. Hey, Marcus, it was rebellious. I'm telling you, it was rebellious.
I'm an artist. Sure. So yeah, you know, like, they're like someone's like, yeah, you know, you're gonna love this song. You're gonna love it. It'd be like, okay, let me hear it. But you know, just like here's a song. Like you just like wanna. The thing about like art and marketing is like a lot of it's like manipulation, because like you want like them to feel like they've arrived to it, and like there's like a ghostwriter behind. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz kind of vibe, where it's like the man behind the curtain, and you think that you have the answer all along, but there was a man behind the curtain. So like that is my approach and thought to it. Just like present the information and like make them feel involved in the decision-making process.
So they're actually part of the story themselves, right? They right. Okay. So they see themselves in the characters, right? Which is what you wanted to do,
With
right?
our graphic novel. With our graphic novel is what you mean? Or
Yes, I was speaking of yes, right.
Well,
okay.
let me just say this. Let me just say this real quick, Marcus. It's an interesting conversation because I learned something from you. If you tell them how to feel before they feel it, it won't matter. That was the key right there. And you're right. When they were playing with the boxes, they made it cool. Nobody said it was cool. They made it cool. And that's what you have done in the graphic novel, and the way in which the reader will have a journey. And Deborah, I can't wait for you to see what they've come up with.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. That's great. You know, I
the
think it was
ready.
Dr. Cook said something to the effect, and it may not be this. He said, if you convince somebody against their will, they're still of the same opinion still.
Yes,
right.
You're right.
Right. You know what I mean? So what you have to do is you have to give people information, believing that they will gravitate to take care of themselves.
Yes.
Now, the problem we have with this is that they're getting a lot of disinformation, the counter information. And so it's not just the message, it's the messengers.
There we go.
Right. And when people are in such imminent danger, you cannot be so cool and say, okay, you figure it out on your own, when you know that they could really die, right?
That's right.
So I guess, Jasmine, help me out. I mean, how do you balance knowing the seriousness of it and then this kind of autonomy that Marcus talked about?
So I would say that's something we did with Seawall, which was a film that I wrote, directed, and produced last year. Marcus was the director of photography. So we paired an anecdote, a story, looking at the statistics that were going on in Kiribati, which is an island in the South Pacific, and also had this documentary aspect to it. So it was a docudrama, being serious about what issues, how climate change is really affecting this nation, but also looking at the humanity of it. So my approach is, yes, with the docudrama format, incorporating that information so that people are educated, but also allowing folks to feel and have that outlet for expression.
Interesting. Hey, Dr. T, you ready to see this, what this a word cloud gonna look like?
Yeah, let's bring the pulse speed up.
Let's bring the word cloud up.
And I can't wait to introduce our panelists to the barbers and stylists that we have out
Absolutely.
there. So
that's what
talk
we're
about
do
this.
Yeah. Do you see what's up front? Do you see grateful,
unbelievable, man? Look at this.
Grateful is the number one word. Thankful, inspired, peaceful. You know, I mean, just look at it. It's just all of the words connected, you know, accountable, pissed. Yeah. Some people pissed off to their highest pistivity.
Well, you know, sometimes you need that to get the movement going. What did Frederick Douglass say? Agitate, agitate, agitate.
Agitate, agitate. Power succeeds nothing without a demand. It never has, never will. Interested, humble, curious, you know, intrigued, fired up, joyful, you know, a lot of great things. And so this is what we do. We just kind of get a pulse beat of what's happening. Thank you so much, team. You can take that down. Put us back in the Hollywood squares, and let's meet some of our barbers and stylists, and we're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to go first to Sandra Jenkins, all the way to the Philadelphia area. Hey, Sandra Jenkins, how you doing?
Go Eagles. This is I've been savoring this whole program today. I was just so wonderful just listening to Sahi. Is that how we pronounce your name?
Shay,
okay. And
Shay, yeah, that's right.
Shay. I stand to be corrected. And Jack Marcus, it's just really, really touching my heart. If I take these glasses off, you will see my eyes watering. You remind me of my son, when he was your age. You're wonderful scholars. You're going to be great. You're going to do wonderful things. I know it. I feel it. My message to my son was always reach for the stars and earn your crown. That's what you do. And when we get on your nerves, Marcus, like that, just look at us and just say, you know what, mom or dad, I understand, because you're going to be in their shoes one day. And that's really how that works. But I have to say, it's just been wonderful, Deborah, just to listen to you touch on the basis of what the discussion goes on in the salons all the time with Black women. We don't want people to know that we were portrayed as being unattractive. It's a secret amongst us. Now that you spoke about it, and now that we have this wonderful nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, with the beautiful locks, we have nothing to hide. And I just really, really just savoring every moment of this wonderful program for the first week of Women's History Month. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely wonderful.
Come on.
Yeah.
Dropping the mic on the first time.
Absolutely. Good.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Let's bring up Dr. Carol Ritter. Dr. Ritter is one of our own. She's so special to us. She's an OBGYN doctor, and she's like our resident expert as it relates to healthcare. And Dr. Ritter, what's you feeling? I mean, you've savored all of this conversation about the creativity that exudes and just ooze out of the spirit of our guests. Tell us what your thoughts are.
Right. I know the arts will get us through trauma. I have experienced that. We all have experienced that. And when I'm listening to this, I don't know if you all realize what a gift you give and how generous it is. And that is a true virtue that will bring everybody to that level of generosity. And that's how we're going to get out of this. So I just am really appreciative of all your creativity. I would love to be able to call myself a creative, but after listening to you, I realize you've gifted me with a feeling that I'm creative.
Well, you bringing babies and helping women to bring forth. I mean, that's about as creative as you can be, right?
Right. And I hear women's stories all the time. And when they, gift me with their stories, it makes me a better doctor.
And I want to thank Dr. Ritter also takes this conversation back to the Maryland State Medical Society, where they made a commitment around equity and inclusion. Well, this is the conversation that holds them accountable to make that real. Mm-hmm. And I want you to also know, Shay, that we did share the Secret Medicine documentary with some of our Hollywood Square friends here, including Dr. Ritter. And that message she said about the gynecologist, the father of gynecology, you told that story so powerfully. And I just wonder if some of the things that we talk about in these squares, are they part of the conversation for the next generation of health professionals? Or do we have to advocate to ensure this history is not wiped out?
Right. You're absolutely right. There is something about history informing us. And so we don't need to just talk about name, dates, and events, but we need to contextualize, as Deborah said. We got to contextualize it. Right? Mm-hmm. That's so very important. Let's bring Katrina Randolph up. Because we love to go into the hair salons where people go get their hair did. Hey, how you doing, Katrina?
I'm great over here on the side of my seat with all this great information. Thank you, Ms. Deborah Riley, for dropping so many great gems. And I was just thinking about how Black women really think that they're unattractive. So this is a great conversation. I have so many notes over here to go study once I get off this call with you guys. Deborah, you really dropped some great information. And like you said, to piggyback off what everybody else said, Marcus and Jasmine, y'all are great. And y'all are headed for greatness. Keep up all the great work. And y'all are definitely headed in a great direction. So I'm excited to be a part of this call tonight.
Oh, absolutely. And Dr. T says it. She says she's the short hair queen. Now, I'm not old enough and I can't say that, but that's what Dr. T says. That she's a master at it.
Hey, right? Mayor,
and so
Mayor Neil,
what's up?
I'm trying to get out of trouble because, hey, Shay, when you came to town, you didn't get to Katrina's salon.
No.
But you forget that.
Yeah.
Well, hold up. This is just one time, Shay. We're gonna do this again. We need a sequel or this, the second round, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. There's so many things I missed out that I didn't get to see, and yeah, I think there'd be so much. There's so many more stories to tell.
But you're here now, and this is the beauty of it. So Katrina, this is Shay who did the documentary. Did a wonderful job.
Yes,
the other thing is the cutting board. Go ahead, Katrina. I'm sorry.
I was just letting him know that documentary was great that he put on. It was really good.
Good. I want to know, Deborah and everybody, the cutting board. You all, how can you cut some of this stuff? Because you got some stuff that you just don't want to let go. How do you decide this is what we got to have in and we got to let this go? How does that? What is that process? Deborah, help us out first. Unmute.
It's the hardest process because you don't want to leave your kids outside.
That's what I'm saying. I was thinking that's got to be like that. How you choose one kid over the other, right?
But I work with this editor, Sandra Christie. She's this amazing editor. She lives in Brooklyn, and Sandra is a ruthless editor, and she does not have any issues sending me a note, because she'll send a note. She's like, I just have a little small note. It's 4 pages. And this is what I'm thinking about this cut. Because I'm like, so we need to shorten this. This is too long. I've got to lose some things. And I'm agonizing. And she's like, yeah, this. We don't need that. We don't need that. Kill that. Kill this. And by the time we go through that, I'm fighting for some things. She's fighting for some things. And we find a place where we're like, you know what? We're both right. We're going to keep this, and we're both wrong in these instances, and we're going to kill all of that. And then you get to a place where your story feels right.
Right.
It's that the pacing's good, everything you intend to tell is there, and then you cut it again.
Oh. What about tempo? Because I noticed that with all of your stories, there's a certain tempo, and so it's a crescendo, and then there's, tell us how do you all decide that part?
Even the music.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. How do you? Yeah. Because you really draw people into this thing. How do you do that? I take me behind it. You love music, okay?
Yeah, and I'm sure Shay,
music's vital.
Yeah, the music sometimes, like in the Legacy of Black Wall Street, I found the song before I even got to the paper cut. I'm like, I'm using this song. I don't know where, I don't know when, but I'm using this song. So sometimes the song, but we're cutting to music. It may not be the final track, but we're cutting. And I always approach documentaries cinematically. So I want you to feel that you're following a protagonist. I want you to feel that tension. I want you to feel that you're on this journey with this person or set of people and their obstacles and their, I want you to feel the same thing you feel when you're watching any other film. And so that's intentional to create all of these moments of tension. So you reach that, like, I don't know if they're going to make it moment. Right. And they may not, or they might.
And we cheer for them.
you want people to cheer, in Legacy of Black Wall Street in that first episode, you aren't cheering, you're in tears, You're like, wow, they are literally about to be massacred. 10,000 African Americans in Greenwood, Oklahoma. Someone wants them dead. So that you get to that point, and then you have to tune in for episode 2. But
Right. That brings me to an interesting point, actually. That was the first thing I thought, actually, was it depends on your format straight away. Are you making a series? Do you want people to come back for series 2? Are you bleeding your information out across 2, 3, 4 episodes? Or are you hoping to take them through it all in half an hour, or is it 1 hour? In half an hour, I tend to kind of start with the strongest stuff I've got, regardless of what it is or how complex it is to understand, because I feel like you hit them with a bang and then you spend the next 25 minutes kind of like unpicking everything that they saw in the first scene. It's going to be like bang, 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 bang. And at the end of it, they kind of understand that crazy thing they saw in the first scene, but they probably want to go out and research more because it's 25 minutes. In an hour, like the documentary I made with you guys, I'm going to be taking people on a journey. So I need to pace it. I need to give them some decent information, take them somewhere else, bring them back again. I need to be very aware that people are going to get bored.
Right.
So I need to factor that in. And I also need to factor in little things like when someone's heard something shocking or they've taken on board a lot of potentially new information, giving them the chance to digest that over the next couple of minutes of your film, some nice visuals, some talking. You don't want to keep hitting them with information that's crucial. You want to bleed those moments out through your 1 hour. Or if you've got a series, you might want to keep teasing it, but never quite tell them it because you want them to come back for episode 2, right?
Yeah. I'm often wondering, Dr. T, you want to say something, but I was often wondering, how do you all deal with your own emotions as you go through these stories? It's like vicarious trauma, right? Right. How do you, Jasmine, you talked about, finding out about, your family and situations. How do you keep your emotions intact, right? while you are trying to work through this? Do you cry through it? Deborah Riley Draper, what do you do? Shay, what do you do? Marcus, how y'all stay strong? You gotta stay strong to do this, right? Like doctors, you can't be crying through the operation.
I mean, I've cried in documentaries. I feel like it's really crucial actually to let the emotion, especially on camera, like if it happens. I went to Sierra Leone straight after they'd had a landslide, a huge landslide, like half a mountain fell on part of the capital city. And I went with this guy up the mountain to go to the place where his house used to be. And we saw the wreckage of his house, and he's pointing out like his kids' toys and things like in the mud and in the wreckage. And he's crying his eyes out. And obviously I did too, because that was a horrible moment. As a father, of young children myself, standing there with another father, how could I not feel that? I think to do anything else would be kind of weird and would probably be psychologically saving yourself up for some serious problems later on down the line. You need to experience emotion when you experience the emotion, right? Go with it to a certain extent.
Mayor Neil, this is what I like about this sacred space that we've created, because he's describing the need to be humble, to show your vulnerability. And you've said before, Mayor, that we got a bit of a movement going. And before we close out, I can't believe how things are flying. We got California in the house. So California,
that's true. We got to bring out.
Marcus was about to say something too.
Marcus is about to say something.
Hold up. I got to bring everybody. When Marcus want to say something, I'm gonna pause and give Marcus the floor. Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, I didn't come to hold you long. I can hold you strong, amen. So. But no, I mean, my approach is a bit different than Shay's. I mean, it depends on if it's a personal story, if it's like a documentary work, because documentaries are in service of someone else. But one script that I read was about a friend who's on my Netflix right now, a best friend of like 18 years who died early on in the pandemic in a tragic fire. And I had written a script about my relationship like with grief and a close friend, but I kind of made this emotional boundary where like I made it safer by adding fictional elements in, so I could like explore like the topic of grief, but it isn't quite autobiographical. And that it was like therapeutic, and it wasn't as like immersive of like me like looking at my own mirror. It was just like kind of like two layers in between. So that was like kind of my safe approach to it. But I've also done a documentary work with Dr. Joseph Richardson at UMB. Called Life After a Gunshot, where we interview like over 10 gunshot survivors and like have their stories. And like that's a really intimate process where they trust us a lot. And like I always like to honor people's time and vulnerability. So in doing that, like of course, like hearing those stories are traumatic, but they were gracious enough to trust me with those. So I try to do my best to put myself aside, decenter myself from the editing process and just like work in service of them. That was my little spiel. California.
Go ahead, Dr. T.
Dr. Joe Richardson is a professor in our Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences. I'm pointing this out because I want this audience to know what we do on this campus to engage our young scholars and mentor them and get them involved in the community. And that's exactly what we're doing. So Marcus, thank you so much for stepping up to the mic. And I can see Sandra right now. I can see the beam. You're touching people right here and across the country and the world. We got somebody over in London listening to you. Absolutely. So who we got coming up next, Omar?
Let's look at Pepe Jackson. Let's go.
That's California.
Let's go. Let's go to the West Coast. Shay. Now they are 2 hours behind me, 3 hours behind Dr. T. Right. So you way ahead of us, and they way behind us in time. So they eating lunch.
not quite. It's almost dinner time. I want to share with you this. First of all, I want to say thank you so much, Dr. T, for inviting us to to the conversation this afternoon. We definitely appreciate it. And the Hollywood Squares, I think this is where new school has met old school, right? Where we're able to allow the new generation share with us some of the thoughts and the intentionality of their creativity, and to know that their voice represents some of the things that we've been working on for generations to be able to share with our people. So our hats are off to you. Great job, young ladies and young men. Keep up the continued good work. My name is Pepe Jackson. I'm the president of the Riverside County Black Chamber of Commerce here in Southern California.
Then we got to give up some snaps, man.
Come on now.
Hold up, we got to get a brother some snaps. Go ahead.
We are excited. Now, I'm here in Southern California by way of Philadelphia, born and raised in Philly. Wanted to shout out to my young lady that's representing Philadelphia over there. So here we are with an opportunity. Of course, the work that you guys are doing is becoming aware here on the West Side. Right?
All right,
so
now.
I just want to let you guys know the work that you're doing is having an impact. It's making its way across the country. We see what you're doing. The work that is being done in the barbershops and the beauty salon is where we have picked up at here on the West Coast. We call it trim the hesitancy.
That's
and
great.
It's directed at our African-American barbers and our beauty salons. I don't know if I have the other gentleman that's part of our program, but what we've intended to do is to provide children's literature to accompany our information to share about the vaccine, but we want to increase literacy at the same time. So he has children books that he does with African-American Black children, books that go on adventures and discover things. So what we are proposing is that on Saturdays, when kids come to get their hair cut, that the kids are tasked with reading a book to their parents. Now, we can have the parents read to the kids, but what we want to do is promote literacy.
Yes.
We're going to be working on a book that is going to talk about Jason visits the doctor.
Okay.
We're going to be able to describe some of the things that it means to be healthy and to take care of yourself. So what we want to do is leverage our opportunity to talk about COVID-19 and some of the other things that are present with health disparities, diabetes, the same things that are being done on the East Coast. We want to replicate it here on the West Coast. So we're reaching out. We really are excited. Our team is here right now. We have
Pepe
right here. My right-hand man right here is from Nigeria, born and raised in Nigeria.
Pepe, you know, this is a beginning, not an end. This is a beginning, not an end.
Well, we all over the
West
South.
Coast anchor.
Yes.
We all over South. I'm down in Alabama. So we all over. We're everywhere. Thanks, Pepe. Let me do this. We talked about what we're doing is dispelling disinformation and misinformation, right? We're gonna just abbreviate a little bit, Meg, but let's get into this disinformation and misinformation so that we'll know that what we're fighting that's what we're fighting. Yes. Because when
each other.
That's it, not each other. We need to be turning to each other, not on each other. Talk a little bit about it, Meg.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to run the numbers very, very quickly. So in terms of cases, yes, cases are going down across the US. We've got 400,000 new cases this week, but deaths have not gone down. Vaccination has gone down. Boosters have gone down. So if you know somebody who isn't boosted, if you know somebody who isn't vaccinated, open it up again because folks are slowing down. Okay, so we're going to step over to disinformation. So this is something, medical disinformation is actually something I'm fascinated by, and I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit, Dr. T, because I don't think that the disinformation people are Goliath. I think they're a puffer fish.
Really?
I think they make themselves bigger to trick you and make you think that they are in control. It is a power tactic.
That's interesting.
So I want to talk about And we've got to be a little careful because this is the kind of thing that can get our content pulled down. So there are 4 things that people falsely believe about the current vaccines, right? These are the 4 things. So it can change who you are. It can put something into you. It can make you infertile, and that it has certain medical tissue inside. All of these are wrong, right? None of this is true about the current vaccines. But these are 4 things people commonly think. Next slide, please, Maggie. So they talked to, there was this research group. They talked to 19,000 people across the country and representative samples to really find out what people thought. And disinformation, somebody believing one of these 4 things, this time last year, 19% of people they were talking to thought one of these fake things. Now it's 16%. Disinformation is getting knocked down in different communities. And also, Dr. T wanted us to highlight that it is going down in the African-American community.
Yes.
It's going down in youth. It's going down in general. Disinformation can be dismantled. So the next things I want to talk to you about, next slide, please, Maggie, are some of the core things that surprised me when I was reading this. When we think about people who are against vaccination, and when we think about parents that are against vaccination, we often think of moms. But in fact, it is in this study, they found that dads were more likely to think something incorrect about a COVID-19 vaccine. We need to talk about dads too. In this study that they found that 46% of people they talked to were not really sure if one of those things was true or not. There are people who don't believe a fake thing, but there are also people who are not sure what the truth is. So we need to be reinforcing the truth. The people who are most likely to believe one of those 4 fake things are people 25 to 44. So we do need to keep, and that's that parent range too, right? So keeping on our mid-range ages. And the thing that I found personally intriguing was that people who believed 2 or more fake things were the strongest in their convictions. They were the most likely to say, you know what, I'm actually an expert on vaccines. They rated themselves that way. They think they know. And so when you're talking to somebody who is not interested in a COVID-19 vaccine, please keep that in mind. They think that they do know. And so thinking through tactics and other things like that are going to be crucial when we talk about misinformation in the future.
Thank you so much, Meg.
That's
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Good. You know, a lot of times, and what you have done, and these are for the filmmakers, you've helped us to dispel dis and misinformation, and as a consequence, people have lives have been saved, and that's so very important. We have, can you imagine? We have 3 minutes left.
Mayor, you think you can get 2 more up here by then?
You know, I'm gonna try. You know, I gotta bring Andre up, or Meg is gonna be texting me. Let's bring Andre up, and then let's
rejuvenates up, and we got to bring her up as well. She's up. Okay, she's up. Okay. Hey, Andre, how you doing, man? You got to unmute.
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for
Deborah Rowley Draper. Andre has a barbershop in the airport in Atlanta.
Really?
In the airport. I mean, like this brother is on another level, right? All right. Hey, go ahead, Andre. Say hello.
Yeah, hello. That's been kind of rough, but I wanted to say that all these young people, including Mr. Draper, have inspired me. With the creativity that's coming off of them, it's a great thing. But she also said something that reminded me of Alex Haley's statement early on, where at one time he said, well, I was just doing research to see where my family came from, whether it was New Orleans or somewhere, and then he ended up with roots. So if you keep on with what you're doing, we never know who we're going to grow into. And we're all perfect examples of that. Everybody in this Hollywood square, perfect examples of putting the next foot forward. Dr. T, the mayor, these are not small individuals in what they believe and what they're doing. So I'm glad to be a part of it right now. And I know I have to go because the marathon.
That's right. You know, you saw me when I pulled up. I didn't have to blow. Okay, here we go. Stacy, with rejuvenate. Tell Stacy, say hello and goodbye. You know we got no time. Go ahead.
Hello and goodbye.
Stacy, tell everybody where you are, sweetheart.
I'm here right outside of Philadelphia, Montgomery County, Waynecote, PA. Let's go Sixers. They're on fire with Harding. So that's all I have to say, and peace to everybody.
Absolutely.
And Shay, we got a whole bunch of new stories coming out of the barbershop for you to come back and help work with these young people here on another story.
I'll be there. I'll be there as soon as I can be.
You know, you won't believe
you got to take me on one of those cowboy rides as well.
Absolutely.
The roundup.
Absolutely. Well, let me say this. The clock on the wall says it's time for us to giddy up out of here. Since y'all talking about cowboys, you know, we are so appreciative of each of you. Jasmine Mitchell, thank you so much for you know who you are. You're an incredible person. Shay Rhodes, all the way from the UK, man. Thank you for hanging out with us. I hope that we didn't disturb your children and that they are still asleep and well, and that wife and everybody is good. Please give our love to them as well. Thank you, my brother. Take care and be safe over there. Marcus Ford, you decided to come out, you know, and just really bring it, brother. And so we appreciative of you and all of the creativity that you exude and all of the collaboration that you've done with the University of Maryland and beyond. So you got a great future ahead of you. We know that. And certainly to Deborah Rowley Draper, words are inadequate. So for me to try to use them is an activity in futility. All right. In terms of how I feel about you and how I admire what you do. For those of you who do not know Deborah Rowley Draper, you need to Google her, look her up, watch her film. They are all extraordinary. Make sure that you pick up her book, right, as well, because she's a great, not only is she a great artiste and filmmaker, but she's also a great author as well. All of those things are right there before you. You all have been here, I think many of you for the first time, but I promise you it won't be the last. So thank you for joining with us. To all of our team, regular barbers and stylists, thank you all for joining with us on The Cutting Edge. Dr. T, my man, we're another great episode of The Cutting Edge. Thank you for all you do, my brother, and for being my friend unconditionally. Right? An
honor and a pleasure, Mayor.
Absolutely. So with that being said, I'd like to thank all of you for joining with us on this segment of The Cutting Edge. Next week, we're going to be talking about women and their contribution to the civil rights movement. That's going to be a powerful conversation on next week. And as always, I like to leave you with these two words. Remember that I love you with a perfect love. But more importantly, remember this: you got the power. And thank you for joining with us on this segment of The Cutting Edge. Until next week, bye-bye.
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 Be safe out there.
Bye.
The virus is still